Welcome to VEROSCOPE, where we're going to be going through the statement analysis and forensic linguistics of the immunity interview that Jennifer Soto carried out with detectives. And in this part of the transcript, we are going to discover some very strong evidence of involvement and prior planning, and I believe what could be the strong motive for the murder. But without getting ahead of ourselves, let's begin the tape.
Okay. Now, June 16th of last year at 9:30 p.m., 27 seconds, you texted Stephan this: Maddie's no longer sleeping with me. I can't risk it. What does that mean?
No idea.
How often was Maddie sleeping with you?
All the time.
What do you keep on saying?
The pause, the mental strain, before she could say I have no idea, says to me that she does have an idea and that she knows exactly why she said this. But she also knows that if she says, then she implicates herself with extreme sentences from the legal system. Let's hear that again.
No idea.
That's a long time. If you have no idea, the natural response when asked a question that you have no idea about is for yourself to say, in a different tonality and volume and pitch that she used, I've no idea. Not the long pause with the cognitive wheels turning. This is extreme deception. And I believe we know why she says this. And I believe we know why we have this answer.
How often was Maddie sleeping with you?
Often. All the time.
When you keep on saying often versus all the time, was it 100% of the time or not 100% of the time?
If she wasn't with my mom and she was with me, then yeah, she was sleeping with me.
And if she's at mom, she's 100% of the time sleeping with mom?
With my mom, or she does have her own room, I guess. Like there's another spare room she could use, but for the most part, she prefers to sleep with my mom.
Okay.
Okay, so we're talking about a young child who we know what's happening to her when she's away from that horror house. I'm not surprised that she needs to stay with her grandmother. So, Maddie is no longer sleeping with me is the text. I can't risk it. And we asked, risk of what? And this was sent to Stephan 8 months before the murder. And Jennifer, this is an impossible claim. This is evidence level forensic linguistics that she's lying. You cannot risk what you don't know exists. Risk requires conscious threat assessment. It requires an identified referent in the mind. And the no idea, don't remember, denies these facts versus memory. And I believe that this text proves consciousness of danger.
Now, my understanding is that you had some sort of period tracker that you kept track of Madeline's period with?
I had a calendar app that I would write what days she would get her period.
And obviously, Madeline doesn't have a job, so she's not going out and buying products that she would need if she had her period, right? You would have to do that for her?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yeah.
So, do you remember her using any of those products at all in February? Because I assume you take the trash out, or does she take the trash out, or how does all this work?
I take the trash out. In February, no, I didn't notice her using any of her feminine hygiene products.
Did you have any conversations with her about that?
No, but I didn't notice until after everything.
Because it would have been due like at the beginning of February. And this all happens at the end of February, so she's almost due again in March.
Okay, so we have a transcript error where actually it's the detective saying this part. But notice this. No, but I didn't notice until after everything. Think about this. This is getting a little bit advanced, but for those who have seen the last number of videos, it's time to get a bit deeper. No, but I didn't notice until after everything. So she's admitting that she did notice, and she gives us a false timeline for when she noticed. Because you can't notice what you didn't notice until after everything has happened. You can't suddenly unnotice what you noticed until everything has happened. It's a little bit deeper, but if you can see it, you can see it. This is wrong.
You never had any conversations with her about not having a period in February?
No, she's had other periods that have been missed or like super late, so I just assumed this was gonna be one of those situations again.
Okay.
But no, I didn't.
Did you ever discuss her periods or lack of periods with Stephan?
I don't think so.
Okay, so we know how she lies. This is an unreliable denial. And we also had a slight hesitation marker. This is a very clear question. Did you ever discuss her periods or lack of periods with Stephan? She knows she has to deny it because I think we're going to indicate later that pregnancy may be a possible reason for the murder, combined with some other aspects, i.e. fear of discovery. I don't think so. This is not a denial. So no period products used in February. Mother takes out the trash. She would most likely notice her daughter. Period was due at the beginning of February, and the murder occurred on February the 26th, there or thereabouts, the night before or the early morning. There are indications that it could be the night before, late that night, of the birthday celebration night. Because we have Jen Soto saying that she got home, having missed the party, and then isolated, if you remember all of the evidence. Claims didn't notice until after everything. This is important. And no discussion, so in other words, she did notice, and no discussion with 12-year-old about missing period. And no discussion with Sterns about the missing period. I'll need to check this. Deception indicators. Just assumed, don't think so, until after everything. Cars appearing twice, and there was a diminished commitment in the hesitation.
It's my understanding that Maddie had to take Miralax. I'm familiar with that myself with my daughter when she was little. So she had constipation issues. Would it ever cause her discomfort, physical pain, bleeding?
Yes.
And how are you?
Okay, so we have a deception marker there. This is a straightforward question, but Soto is aware of the ramifications.
Aware of that.
She would tell me. There have been moments So we've gone to,
So can you hear the cognitive strain? As she begins the deception, her brain is under immense strain. Hence the ums and the long thinking times before the words that she chooses.
we've gone to doctor's appointments, they run a lot of tests on her, they told me why her body's doing what it's doing. But she's shown me if there was blood or if she's in the bathroom.
Okay, so this is third party handing off with the doctor. Why her body is doing what it's doing. And we know why her body is doing what it's doing. So this is deeper analysis. If we're assuming at this stage that she is aware, and you can see the pattern. You can see the pattern.
And she just can't go, like it's stop. She showed me that too. So
Yeah, and that laugh, that snigger when she says this, and the minimization.
Did she ever specifically seek treatment for tears or bleeding or anything due to her bowel movements?
no, I didn't think so. Fears or anything like that.
Okay, so by now you're hearing it. The deceptive, no, I don't think so. This is not a denial to the question. And from what we know of the way that she lies, this is admission in forensic linguistic terms.
I don't think there was ever a fear.
Okay, incorrect.
On February
Okay, yeah,
26th,
that should be here.
the whole purpose of Stephan.
Okay, so we have a documented history of bleeding. She showed me, which she repeats, showing that this is in forensic linguistic terms very stressful to her. Multiple doctor visits established. Attempting to create plausible explanation for the injuries, and saying that there was no particular treatment for the tears specifically, and is attempting perfect medical cover for the abuse injuries. She's shown me like she's shown me. Don't think so about. You would know, wouldn't you? This is so obviously a lie. Even on day 2 of knowing anything about forensic linguistics, or knowing nothing about it. Don't think so. That's such an important matter about her daughter who's been murdered. Don't think so. Minimization, just, vague, a lot of tests, non-specific, which tests, by whom, when, how often.
On coming and taking Madeline to school so that you could get some sleep. You administer medication Saturday night, so on and so forth, right?
Yes.
Is there any particular reason Stephan couldn't have driven your car to take Madeline to school and therefore not embarrass her and he could just drop her off normally?
Yes, but because he's not on my car insurance, I was very nervous to let him drive my car.
Okay. Yes, but because he's not on my car insurance, I was very nervous to let him drive my car. Let's examine this deception. She says that the reason Stephan took Madeline to school to drop her off, which he didn't, we know instead she was murdered and he dropped her body off elsewhere in the woods. So the very first time, out of the norm, entirely out of the norm and entirely out of the blue, she introduced the reason that she wasn't dropped off at school but far away is because she's embarrassed by his car. Now, if she's never been dropped off by him, then she's never been dropped off by him in his car. And so therefore it's impossible for her to be embarrassed by his car in the drop-off. And also, she says that she didn't have a conversation with her daughter or see her daughter that morning. So, deception. There is one possibility, and that they did have a large discussion about being dropped off in the morning by Stephan instead of her, and that she mentioned it. But she doesn't ever say that in all of the statements. Only when questioned about why she wasn't dropped off at school, but was dropped off quite a way away. This is false. This is a lie. It's a deliberate lie, in my opinion, and it's evidence of collusion in the plot to hide the evidence.
You did let him drive your car after this occurred, though, right?
Yes, but he was very insistent because he wanted to go look for Maddie, and he had a spare on his car because he had a flat, so he couldn't drive his car. So he just really wanted to go out. So I just let him, but I wasn't comfortable with it.
Great.
Okay. Very insistent. Can you imagine the heated conversation? Both of them fully aware of what's happened. He just really wanted to go out. He just. There's connection. The whole sentence has deceptive markers all over the place. So won't let him drive the car for insurance concerns, will let him sleep alone with her daughter. Insurance takes priority over child safety. Immediately breaks the rule when the child is missing. And lots of sensitivity markers. He just wanted to go look for Maddie, and he had a spare on his car because he had a flat and he couldn't drive his car. So he just really wanted to go out. So I just let him, but I wasn't comfortable with it. What have you just said, Jennifer? You've just said you were not comfortable to look for your murdered daughter because you were a little bit scared of the insurance. This is a complete lie, 100%, and further evidence that she is complicit, in my opinion.
During your previous interviews, and you did it once today, you kind of interchanged I, we, or Stephan dropping Madeline off at school. Did you see Madeline at all on February 26th, 2024, that Monday?
Whispered no.
Do you know anything about how she died?
No.
Whispered no.
Did Stephan tell you anything about how she died?
No.
Does Stephan?
Unbelievable. Okay. Now, sometimes when Jennifer tells the truth, she does tell a confident, single word yes. But in terms of denial, the whispered no, and these are very important questions. Do you know anything about how she died? No, this is not a whispered, timid no. Is not a reliable denial. A reliable denial is no, I do not know anything about how Madeline died. Clear and a denial. This is completely unreliable, and in my opinion indicates the opposite. Did Stephan tell you anything about how she died? The whispered no. I think she wasn't involved in the murder. Did Stephan tell you anything about how she died? The single whispered no. It's weak, but there is an indication that she wasn't involved in the actual murder from this in isolation. Again, it's deeper analysis, but it does indicate that alone. But a single flag means nothing. We look at flags, clusters of flags, and superclusters.
Tell you about his plans to go back down to Northport in your car that Wednesday morning. Got any questions, Mark?
Okay, so there's that long pause and again the whispered no. Did Stephan tell you about his plans to go back down to Northport in your car that Wednesday morning? And we had the similar type of denial. So the unreliable denials, the 3 no responses. What makes a reliable denial? I did not, the specific allegation restated, and the example I did not, well, an example, I did not see Madeline that morning. Jennifer's actual responses, did you see Madeline? No. Know how she died? No. Did Stephan tell you? No. And why these are unreliable? No pronoun ownership, no temporal commitment. It avoids stating what she didn't do, and it appears like this is what she knows that she has to say when asked these questions. And that difference between her single word truthful answers, which has confidence, it's fast, it doesn't take cognitive thinking time, and it's said at normal pitch and tone and volume, it's entirely different than her truthful single word answers. And you know what an innocent person would say. This whispered no is completely unreliable. Question about Wednesday triggers silence.
I'm going to jump through because I'm making notes as we walk. So, how frequently did Stephan come up here after he moved back to Northport?
I'm going to say
How many times total do you think he came back here?
2 to 3 times.
Do you remember if those were around specific dates?
One was like the week of Christmas. I can't remember when the other one was.
Was Stephan in town the week or 2 prior to this last time he came?
I don't know. It's possible that I don't remember. Everything's becoming a blur.
Okay, notice the tense. Everything is becoming a blur. Not everything was a blur. Her English is perfectly fine. She knows how to speak English fluently. She's also fluent in Spanish. But this is her telling us what she's doing. She knows she's under extreme risk of saying the wrong thing, and she's cornered, and she's now introducing, look, I'm going to start denying and saying I can't remember, and don't blame me because everything is becoming a blur. We have the beginning of the shutdown and the excuses.
Do you remember sending him a text message asking if he can babysit Maddie while you go out lunch with your friend?
This was a few weeks before.
Okay, so she introduces a question to the detective. Very often in interviews, the interviewee will begin to ask questions to the interviewer. Sometimes mathematically, percentage-wise, at an extreme level. What they're doing before they answer is they're doing essentially two things. They're buying more cognitive time to answer the question, and they're also gaining intelligence about what the interviewer knows or what the interviewer is expecting as the answer. So questioning the question is a deceptive marker in its own right. Here we have sensitivity.
I remember going out a few weeks before. I remember asking him to babysit. I don't know what he was.
Okay, so notice she told us what she was going to do. Everything is becoming a blur because I'm cornered. And here we have I remember, I don't remember, I don't know. At least she's consistent.
Did you ever go to lunch with your friend? And he babysat her?
I did go to lunch with my friend, but I don't think he was here. I think I might have stayed home alone for a few hours.
Okay, let's examine this because that was delivered quickly. So here we have a small deceptive marker. When it's 3 or 4 eyes with the stutter, we can normally assume that there's some level of deception, or if it's a completely innocent situation, a level of really thinking about what the answer should be. Remember, a single flag doesn't point out anything in particular, but because we're in a deceptive situation of a murder, we look at this and we think, okay, she's consistent with mini fractures and then delivering a deception. So what does she do after this one? Did go to lunch with my friend, but I don't think he, I, fractured incorrect pronouns, don't think is sensitive. He was here, I think, sensitive, triple sensitivity. Maddie stayed home alone. So something happened. And she knows what happened. What were they doing? And she knows what they were doing. This is showing the stutter.
When you mentioned Maddie caught on about you guys being broke up, how did that happen? What did she say, or?
I forgot. We were having a conversation with each other. You guys broken up. We kind of looked at her. Why do you ask? She was, because you guys are kind of acting like you're broken up. You guys haven't hugged and kissed in a long time. Okay. So we just
How do you think she felt about that?
The ha at this point is interesting. And she goes, are you guys broken up? Present tense. We kind of, deception marker. And we're like, deception marker. She goes, present tense. Because you guys are kind of acting like you've broken up. You guys haven't hugged and kissed in a long time. Ha! Little snigger. And we're like, deception marker. So we just, minimization, kind of, huge. So here we have deceptive paragraph. Can you see it? Becomes, as was mentioned before, like an accent after a while. Once you see it, you see it. Full of deceptive markers all over the place, kind of, was like, kind of. I'm sure she did notice, but the way that she's made this up in the present tense isn't exactly what happened.
fine. She did not sad or happy or anything. You're just like, whatever.
Okay, we didn't ask what the interviewer is like. So where she says, you're just like whatever, do you see how this is wrong? She's not saying what Madeline felt. Fine. Huh. She didn't act sad or happy or anything. You're just like whatever. So she's not talking about Madeline's feelings, she's talking about the interviewer's feelings. When we hear this, it's a high deceptive marker. As you look at other cases, you'll often see the suspect answer your. So they put the feeling onto you. So how do you feel about your missing daughter? Well, in these cases, you're obviously. Do you see how they do it? It's very common. It's because the unconscious mind doesn't like to lie. Okay.
All right. Now you mentioned to me before too that you found her phone on her dresser in like your little bedroom area. Does she have a specific spot where she plugs in her phone to try? How does she charge her phone?
So on her side of my bed, she's got a long charger. She'll connect it there to charge. Don't know how.
So not our bed, my bed.
She charged it that night though. Don't know if she took her charger and moved it to the room upstairs. Not sure.
How do you charge your phone?
I charge my phone with my charger next to me on my side of the bed.
Okay, is it one that you plug in or? Okay.
Let's talk about the phone, because the phone's interesting. In one of the previous analyses, I made an error, and in the transcript, I thought that she said that she had sent messages to the phone, but she hadn't. She had checked for messages on the phone. I misheard it, and so it changed the analysis completely. However, further on in the interview, she says that she called the telephone. And I think, she says that she was in possession of Madeline's phone, and then she called it. And very often in criminal cases, this digital footprint evidence is made. We have evidence that we have planning architecture that's changed, so that he dropped her off, I dropped her off, we dropped her off, Stephan dropped her off. And that to me says that in the discussion about what are we going to say, the plans changed from I took her to school, Stephan took her to school, we took her to school, etc. And eventually they settled on Jen stayed in bed and didn't hear or see anything. And that Stephan, for the very first time ever, would take Madeline to school, and because of the embarrassment of his car, didn't drop her at school, but made up the story that dropped her away from the school and in fact dropped her body off in the woods. So the fact that she called that telephone is highly interesting. I think it's a change of plan in digital footprint establishment. So let's recap. The forensic significance of the June 16th text cannot be overstated. The statement, I can't risk it, proves consciousness of specific risk that Jennifer claims she has no idea about, with an awfully long pause before this. You cannot text about risks you don't know exist. Risk requires threat identification and evaluation. It requires a specific referent in the speaker's mind. Can't risk establishes that there's been an analysis of what the risks are, And this is risk management language, not protective parent language. And the no idea is a complete failure of any defense. She doesn't even say, I don't remember, or I can't remember, which would be a little bit better. She says, I have no idea. And this denies that the concept ever existed in her mind, which is impossible given that she texted about it specifically in precise detail 8 months earlier. So, the pregnancy motive. I didn't notice, do you remember this? I didn't notice until after everything. So let's look at this deeply. The linguistic impossibility of retroactive noticing. You cannot not notice until after something that you've never noticed. And this language construction reveals that she did notice the absence before the murder, and she claims to assign the significance to it only after everything. Everything being a temporal lacuna, concealing the murder evidence, in my opinion. And this is unconscious confession of prior knowledge, in my opinion. Do you see? You cannot not notice until after something that you never noticed. This is an unconscious error. It's deep analysis, but if you've watched the videos, you should be on the same page. The facts Jennifer establishes. Period due, beginning of February. Jennifer takes out the trash and would see the products, especially with her daughter. Tracks the and look at this. She tracks the periods on a calendar app. No products are seen to be used in February, and the murder occurs on February the 26th. The early February period doesn't arrive from the evidence. February 14th, it's 2 weeks late. February the 26th, the murder occurs. And after everything, unconsciously, with a slip of the tongue, Jennifer acknowledges this significance. The detective. Did you ever discuss, see the detectives detectives know. Did you ever discuss her periods or lack of periods with Stephan? Look at this. I don't think so. Pregnancy exposure would reveal Stephan's sexual abuse of the now 13-year-old, apparently since she was 8. Jennifer's knowing facilitation. Criminal liability for both. The loss of Stephan's $600 rent. And there are also other money aspects, possibly the theft of the birthday money, which might have ignited the argument, and then with the other fears of exposure and perhaps things going too far, the motives combine. And this is my opinion. We have a 95% certainty. And this is just from this small portion of the transcript. We're going to be adding all of the different transcripts together when we get to the end and come to a conclusion with all of the evidence. You can look at this in your own time if you wish to pause the video. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's analysis. I believe there are 2 more in this series. If you've got to the end, I would really appreciate it if you haven't subscribed already to do so. The YouTube message is that most of the people who regularly watch the videos don't subscribe. So it would help not just my own numbers, but it would also push this evidence out to others. So if you would do so, that would be very kind. There's also an option to join as a member. There was a question on the last analysis, where do I see that? You don't see it on this video, you have to go into the channel, into the whole channel where all the videos are listed, and it's there. There's 2 levels of membership. One is like a tip, and the other one is to access the more detailed training where we go through from A to Z in detail, forensic linguistics. So I've yet to make those videos, but I will be making them. And thank you very much, everybody, for the wonderful comments. If you see things which I've missed, please put them in the comments. If you see conclusions which I've missed or VEROSCOPE has missed, again, put those in the comments. I read them all, and they do help. And because I don't know all of the facts of the case, where I'm wrong, you put me right. And as I said last time, that's very much appreciated. Okay, have a wonderful day.